Whew. Might be a shorter video today. It's freezing. 33 degrees, so not quite, but still pretty cold. Okay, last video was about introversion, extroversion, and my relationship with that and how it all changed. I think the next big thing in my life was high school. I got my very first girlfriend ever. And we dated for all of 2 months. And I tried to convert her. Did not go well. That was, I think, the reason that we separated. She was uncomfortable with me stating to her explicitly, I think God wants you to be baptized into the Mormon church. And even at the time, I felt awkward doing it. But it felt right. It felt like I should be doing that. And a few days later, she broke up with me, and I think it was the right decision for her. Looking back, I'm glad she did it. It showed to me proper boundaries, I guess you could say. But anyways, I graduated high school in 2007. And I think it was almost a full year till I went on my mission. I served in Brasilia, Brazil, from 2008 to 2010. And about a year waiting time. That was a pretty dark time in my life. I had, I think, all of one job. So not a lot of money, a lot of time, and nothing to do with it. Didn't have a whole lot of friends that I had close physical proximity to, so not a whole lot to occupy my time. I was mostly just finding things to do, and I don't really remember what I did during that time. Just a lot of boredom and a lot of driving around, exploring, and maybe some reading and video games, but nothing at all to prepare me for life or my mission. I remember opening my mission call. A lot of my friends were there. It was an exciting time. I enjoyed it. I got the experience of a physical mission call, a letter that came in the mail, packets of information. They even had a little bit of a dossier on the mission president, Gelson Pizirani. He was a pretty cool guy, interesting. But first, I went to Sao Paulo for 2 months and learned a little bit of Portuguese, a little bit of how to teach the gospel. That was a very difficult transition for me. Being totally unprepared for the real world, let alone a different country, even with the entire support network that I was a benefactor of. The Mormon Church is an extensive support network of members and resources, and I always felt like I could fall back on that, but nothing constant emotional support like I needed. No friends that you could call at a moment's notice, or no one that you knew from the outside to be able to do it with you. I figured at one point, did the math, and I spent more time in the classroom than I did in bed asleep. It was very much a boot camp for the mission field of let's get you going and prepared as much as we can. It was a very strict environment. And it was really the cult experience dialed up to 11. That's something maybe I'll go into more depth about later, covering about cult behavior and the bite model and all that. I'm just going through and telling my experience kind of as it happened. I didn't really have very much of a proactive approach to it all. It was kind of more just a survival, get through it kind of an attitude, something I didn't really understand at the time. It was just, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Here I am doing it, and let's get through it however I can. And of course it was very painful getting out of the mission field, and I tried to get myself sent back home. Not through any kind of misbehavior or rebellion, but the only legitimate, in quotation marks, way that I could find of looking into my past or certain things that were going on and saying, oh, I did this, I did that, I need to get sent home. And it was all some convoluted thing about I broke a piece of sidewalk in a third world country, and it was just this tiny little thing that chipped off when I stepped on it. That tripped me out for a couple of weeks of thinking, oh, maybe that'll be enough. And I just had so much, I was hung up on it. Just the self-blame and guilt and shame and all this stuff that I thought would get me sent home, and just digging through my past and confessing to the mission president. And now I understand it was kind of the only way I had any real sense of control, because I wanted to go home, but I couldn't just say, I want to go home. You're supposed to do it. You're supposed to go through the whole 2 years, get home, get married, and have a wife and kids and all that. I was so blinded by my pain that I didn't realize my dating options would be seriously compromised, that I would be considered not marriage material. But I wanted to go home nevertheless. I was in that much pain and not really understanding my pain. And I had some decent companions. My trainer was a good guy. I liked him. Second companion, he was cool. We got along. He's kind of a jokester. And there were some difficult ones. There were some difficult experiences I had of people that were not understanding of my difficulties, let alone me being understanding of my difficulties or how to explain it. There was one in particular that was so awful, so much of a challenge, such a stickler, so... I don't know if he did it on purpose or if it was just the way he was, but so belligerent, so nitpicky, so whatever, that I reached a point where I decided, okay, I'm going to have to decide to be happy. This isn't going to happen through the actions of anybody else. And honestly, I thank him for it. That kind of psychological resilience that he forced me to have was very beneficial to me. I think to this day, it showed me that within the confines of my own mind, regardless of my circumstances, I have this core of strength. Even when I'm miserable, I can choose to focus on things that make me happy. I liked Brazil. I liked the people, the food. It was sunny. Everyone was very friendly and inviting. I think a lot of that had to do with, hey, you're an American, you're pretty cool, and maybe you're rich. But the Brazilian people are very, very friendly and have a certain celebratory approach to life, which I appreciate even more now. And I got pretty good at Portuguese. Eventually I got to the point of being fluent and giving directions, like that movie, The Best 2 Years. It kind of goes unnoticed. You're struggling and you're struggling and you're struggling, and you reach a point where the struggle becomes so normal to you that when you reach a point of fluency where you don't have to struggle, it kind of goes unnoticed, because there's always struggle. You always encounter words that you don't understand, or things that confuse you, or people with a certain accent that you find difficult to comprehend. But there was still a large element of fear in me about everything, even the language. I would hear of missionaries dreaming or thinking in Portuguese, and that scared me. I felt like if that happened to me, I would lose myself in some way. So I never leaned into that. I think I remember making an effort not to think in Portuguese, or at least not let it become the habit. I had some dreams in Portuguese. Couldn't say what they were. It's been so long now. And I'm sure there's a lot more detail I can go into if I went back and thought about it a little more and dug up some of my journals, my planners. I baptized 25-ish people. I think that's one of the reasons I was able to keep my sanity on my mission. Not only was it a high success, it was in a place that had lots of sunshine, which as a native to the Pacific Northwest was beneficial to me. Didn't do any good for my hairline. But I enjoyed the sunny and warm climate. There were friends that I made. There were people that I enjoyed being around. Never really encountered any weird doctrine or things that shook my faith. There was one point where I asked myself, how do I know if there's a God? I don't have any personal experience seeing or feeling physically, I mean, hearing. Ooh, hey now. There was a small form of doubt that went away pretty quickly, because my conclusion to that thought was, well, if there is no God, how is there a difference between right and wrong? And of course that's been recontextualized since then. Right and wrong being social constructs for the most part. But that's another video. So I had small doubts, nothing major. Cultura racional. Rational culture. To this day, I don't know what was going on with that. I don't know what group it was, or if it was a local thing. But every now and then I'd see someone. As a missionary, I was tasked with contacting people, just talking to them, as many people as I could. So every now and then we'd talk to someone and they'd hand out a pamphlet with that phrase on it and a bunch of tenets or beliefs or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was all in Portuguese, and I understood a majority of it. Some words were odd, and it's been so long I don't remember what it was exactly, but just weird. I'd have to go back and look, and I'm curious now if I still have that. Maybe I'll search for it and see if there's any information out there about it. that was interesting, being exposed to different beliefs and thinking, wow, that's kind of weird, and just kind of brushing it aside. Whenever I talk to those people, I always have the sense of not exactly don't waste my time on them, but like, yeah, they're probably never going to be baptized, so why bother? I'd be preaching to them, they'd be preaching to me. That's how I imagined it going in my head. We never really spent a lot of time on those people. So overall, it was a good exposure to other people, cultures, religions. The majority of people that I talked to were Catholic. There was one area in particular that had a big Catholic church right in the middle. I'd say 80% of the people that we went up to, before we could open our mouth, "So católico." "Oh, I'm Catholic." "Okay, good enough." I guess the area had been oversaturated with missionaries. Not a lot of success. That got to me. That was tough, being rejected all day, every day. Originally, when I put it in my mission papers, I wanted to go to Germany. Oh boy, I'm glad I didn't go there. Dark winters with very cold people. Friendly, I'm sure, but people that are not very receptive to religion. I'm sure I would have suffered in a whole new way over there if I had gone. I wouldn't say I was a rule breaker. I was very much a rule follower. Nothing crazy strict. It was more just, that's what you do. You go with the flow, and rules are there to keep you safe, and do your best. Repent when you don't. There was one particular experience that I remember quite profoundly. There was a mother and a daughter where I think the daughter had been baptized before we got into the area. And when we took over, I think we baptized the mother. And she got so attached to us. For good reason, I suppose. We went there all the time, and the daughter was pretty cute. My companion was much less of a rule follower than me, and I think in his own way wanted to encourage something between her and I, which I'm glad for now. At the time I was not so pleased, but regardless, we were over there quite a bit, and I even celebrated my 21st birthday with them. That was such a lovely day. And cake and presents and everything. I felt like family. It was wonderful. It was so delightful to be able to be received and loved and cared for in that way by people that I had only known for a month or two, maybe. All while being so far away from home. And then it came time for me to leave. And the mother was just heartbroken. Just had such a difficult time accepting the fact that I couldn't talk to her. It was against the rules. There would be no contact, not in any meaningful way. So as the day grew closer, I could see she was more upset and more worried about it. We exchanged emails, so at least there'd be some kind of contact that would be kept. But the night that I left, we got there, and I think she'd been drinking. I could tell she was extraordinarily upset. So we left her house, and she walked with us for a block or two. And she gave my companion a hug. And then she gave me one. And it was just such a profoundly human moment. This grief that she felt, it really touched me in a way that maybe broke through some of the programming of you gotta follow the rules. You can't hug anybody. I think it was her that said, you're representatives of Jesus Christ and you can't give someone a hug. Why? That was a profound experience for me. I didn't really understand it at the time in the way that I do now. She just wanted to be human. She wanted compassion. She wanted closeness. And we couldn't give it because of the rules. And so because of the rules, this human being was kept from experiencing closeness, kindness, compassion, love. And it broke my heart. I was pensive after that and just... I think I decided afterwards, if someone needs it that bad, if I encounter someone again that is that distraught, I think I'll give them a hug. After all, that's what I'm here for, isn't it? To spread the love of Jesus, this being of infinite and perfect love. The rest of my mission was uneventful, you could say. More difficult companions, more good ones. If one of you is watching this video now, say hi, please. I'd love to hear from you. Oh, and I remember the exit interview. Making the plan for what happens after your mission. Mission president made it a point to say, your mission now is to get married. Great. I liked that idea. I wanted it. And it still felt out of reach. Intangible. I didn't know what that meant or how to do it or what the steps were. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You go on dates. Okay, how do I go on dates? You ask someone. Okay, I can do that maybe, but every step of the way it was fraught with unknown. It was fraught with the unknown and the fear that accompanied that. Not only that, but the fear of rejection and abandonment. So during the interview, it was this vague excitement of great, something in the future that I can look forward to, and this is what I want. It was kind of this sense of getting back on track, having those two things aligned, what I want and doing what I want. It was kind of like touching back down into my own life. For 2 years I lived someone else's life. Lived my life for someone else, you could say. So, foreign missions, I don't know if they're still like this, but the one I was in, every year one transfer was a week short, just to make sure there's no trouble with any visas or passports. So I left in September 2008 and returned in August of 2010. And it was a sunny day. I remember thinking that was the best day of my life. Flew flew from Sao Paulo to Dallas, I think. Parted ways with missionaries. From there, I went to PDX. My family was waiting for me. I ran to them, hugged them. And integrated back into normal life. Started going to college and then young single adult ward next after a few weeks. And I think that's probably the next video. Overall, what did I learn? Not a whole lot. Psychological resilience, I suppose you could say. Learned how to suffer. Did plenty of that. Maybe you could say I applied some of the skills I learned from that book, Introversion, Extroversion. But other than that, it was kind of just run-of-the-mill. Painful, average, boring Mormon mission. See you next time.